Yo, 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 what is up, everybody? And this is Colin, back at it again, with probably the only video you will ever see that's not recorded in the darkness. But I did want to talk about this. It's pretty big news, I would say. So I'm going to be talking about the new announcement from Kemper about the liquid profiling. It's going to be like a new firmware update as far as I'm aware. And it's pretty big news, I would say, for the profiling / modeling community within the guitar scene. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, I'm a huge gearhead when it comes to guitar stuff, I've got a few of my guitars back here, but I've been really interested in getting into modeling here in the past few months. I do play with a band, and I have a big Marshall tube amp head with a 2x12 speaker cabinet, and it's not portable, not easy to carry around, and so I have been kind of looking into the modeling world, and so with this announcement, this definitely is kind of making me interested in the Kemper. So essentially, a few days ago, Tone Junkies did an interview with Kemper, the founder and creator of the Kemper Profiler, and he actually released some new information regarding the future of the Kemper. And specifically, there were two big things that he talked about, which were the new liquid profiling and the USB audio functionality, which kind of solve two big, I guess, issues that people have had with the Kemper. I personally don't own a Kemper. I would love to, and I've been looking into it, but I have not bought one yet. But this has definitely kind of swayed me into the Kemper camp. But essentially, the liquid profiling enables you to kind of merge modeling and profiling in a very symbiotic way. So the difference, for those of you who are unaware, a profile is like a snapshot of an amp in its state at the time that it was captured. So the settings, the EQ, the gain stages, all of that are kind of set in stone. And the Kemper, you can kind of tweak them a little bit, but it's not affecting it the same way the actual EQ on the amp would. It's kind of the Kemper's adding its own EQ and gain and compression on top of the profile, so it's not going to have the same sound and ultimately kind of changes the personality of the amplifier. Whereas modeling uses an algorithm to simulate an amp and how an amp would respond based on what you change. So if I'm twisting the EQ on a model, it's simulating what those changes would be on the real amp. So, good examples of modelers are the Fractal, the Axe Effects, the Helix, the Headrush stuff. All of those are modelers, whereas the Kemper and the Tone X are profilers. So, because they are adding some modeling technology in with the profiling, it will enable you to literally tweak the EQ of the amp that you profiled. So it's using a model of the EQ on that amp, and you can put it on top of the profile, and they work together. So it's literally changing the knobs on the amp, but you still get the quality and the presence and the tone that comes with the profile. So it's pretty ingenious, to be honest. Very incredible technology. I'm gonna be curious to see once the update rolls out and it's in the real world, kind of what that's gonna sound like. It's kind of something that's kind of hard for me to wrap my head around, to be honest, because typically it's always been you got a profiler or a modeler. I mean, you have things like the Quad Cortex and the Headrush Prime that kind of combine the two technologies, but never in this way. And this kind of solves the issue that people have always had with the Kemper, where, like I mentioned before, you can't adjust the physical EQ of the amp that you profiled. You can only dial it in with what the Kemper has to offer, which, like I said, kind of changes the fundamental tone of the amp. So I'm definitely gonna be curious to see how that plays in with profiling going forward, because it's revolutionary. And I will be very curious to see how it sounds in demos. But big props to Kemper and the team over there, because it's crazy. And the fact that, for a second, let's talk about the fact that the Kemper came out 10 years ago, 12 years ago, or something like that, and it's still being updated and supported. And the firmware update for all of this stuff is free to existing users. Like, you're not having to buy a Kemper 2, they're not rolling out a new product. This is just like an update to existing hardware. And so the fact that Kemper has continued to support their their gear through the decade here at this point is really great. It's definitely something that sways me into their kind of camp, because the fact they continue to support it, continue to care about the owners, and offer this stuff for free is a very big deal. You're not having to like go out and buy new hardware every couple years. So that is the first big thing, the liquid profiling. The second big thing is the USB audio. And so essentially what this will enable you to do is, like, you can record direct out of the Kemper through the USB port, which is pretty standard, like, I would say, for today. Like every modeler or profiler or whatever you're buying will tend to have a USB port and enable the device to serve as an interface. And so that is what this is enabling you to do. So prior to the USB audio being rolled out, you would have had to run the Kemper into an audio interface through the outputs. So you would have to like output from the Kemper into an interface, and then the interface would serve as the middle ground between your Kemper and your DAW. Whereas now you have the Kemper being the interface and enabling you to just record direct out. That's also game changing, and I think especially for stuff like reamping and DI tracks and stuff like that, like, that's going to be huge, because it takes some of the effort and routing out of the process. So USB audio and liquid profiling, that's pretty big news, I would say, especially, like I said, for a product that's old. A lot of people have kind of, I guess, tended to believe that the Kemper is not really worth buying because it's old technology, but this just goes to show that they're still working on revolutionizing it and creating new like incentives to buy into their ecosystem, because I mean, Kemper has some great products, and like I said, this is all going to be rolled out onto all of their hardware. So if you have the profiler head, the power head, the rack stuff, if you have the stage pedal board, all of this stuff is going to be available for free to you, no charge. You just get on, install the firmware, and you're off to the races. So I'm definitely going to be curious to see how this kind of sounds in the real world, and I think it's definitely going to put a lot of pressure on other manufacturers as well. I mean, you have brands like Fractal, who have considered probably the best modeling hardware in the game right now, and currently don't offer any sort of profiling, which seems to be kind of the direction this market is going in. And so it'll be curious to see how like brands like Fractal and Line 6 respond, because this is pretty much like enticing people to buy into the Kemper. I mean, you have modeling and profiling mixed in the same unit that's time tested, proven, and has a long history of support. So I don't know, be curious to see how this will affect the market going forward. But with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. It's just something I want to talk about. I definitely think that it's going to make rounds in the guitar community. But with that being said, leave your thoughts in the comments. I'd be happy to have some discussions with you all about what this could mean for the market. But yeah, with that being said, I've been Colin. It's been the video. Peace.